Hey there, Chad here from Chibi AI, and in this video I want to pit the older generations of Llama models by Meta with the newer models and just kind of see how they perform against each other. And I'm going to do this in a way that's not using like benchmarks that kind of don't make a whole lot of sense to us, I think. What I'm going to try to do is use some progressively more complex prompts that will see if we can kind of get an understanding of what the differences are maybe between some of these models. And so let's take a look at how this is set up right now. I don't have the 405 in here right now. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this one here, click this button, which brings a copy of that in. And then I'm going to go into the AI settings. I'm going to change the model to 3.1 405. And I don't believe that there is a 405 for 3.2, if I'm not mistaken. Nope. Okay. And so there's a 3.1 405, and now let's collapse this and let's go down here and we'll make it 3.1 405. And right here as well. Oops, 405. Okay. And for now, let's just turn that off. Okay, so what we have going on here is we're first gonna get results from Llama 3, 8 billion, 3.1, 8 billion, and then 3.2, 11 billion. There's no 3.2, 8 billion. This is roughly the equivalent version of the same model, just in a 3.2 rev. And then we have 70 billion, 3.1 70 billion, and then 3.2 90 billion. Again, there's no 3.2 70 billion, but this is the closest representation in this rev. And so what we're going to do is we're going to run the exact same prompt across all of them. So we've got this variable here called llama generations prompt. And what I'm going to do is go into my global memory here, and I have this llama generations prompt. So this is not the one I'm going to use right now. I'm going to go into my snippets and just bring in this one. And what this is like level 1, essentially. It's just a simple prompt that says, explain why ramen has immense umami flavor, bold keywords using markdown, and I kind of give it a format to follow, but do not use headings or lists. Write one paragraph max, no more. Do not write a lead, nor explain what you did. Just write the paragraph only. So it's relatively simple. It has a little bit of complexity to it because we're trying to get some markdown, and we're also trying to get only one paragraph, and we're trying to make sure that it does not do anything else, just writes the one paragraph. Now, if you've used really small models before, you'll find that sometimes if you start adding things to your prompt that aren't just like one specific thing, then the model can sometimes not really follow, or only follow parts. Sometimes only following the first part and the last part, leaving the middle out, stuff like that. And so what we're going to be able to see here is the llama generations prompt is now this one. We'll call this level 1. And we've got 4 levels that we're going to go through here in this video. And let me just go back to our actions here real quick. And we can go into here, into here, into here. You can see that they're all using that same variable. And what that'll do is use the exact same prompt across them all. And we'll go ahead and turn this one back on. Let's just review it real quick and make sure that everything is set up right. And so we got llama 3.1 405, 405. We'll go into here. It's 3.1 405. The instructions are essentially, these are the same instructions for all the steps. Follow the user prompt exactly. Our AI settings are the same across all the steps. We're using a temperature of 0.3 and a maximum length of 1024 with a top P of 1. I'm not using 0 as the temperature because that just makes it way too determinate. And we want to see if there's any sort of slight differences when the model is allowed to have just a little bit of leeway with which words to choose while it's generating them. So our setup is complete. Just go ahead and save this real quick. All right, so when we run this, we're going to get the results for each of these in a sequence, and we'll do a comparison. So let's run. We got llama 3, 8 billion going first. We can see that there's a little bit of formatting issue going on where the model didn't add in a line break like it should have. we're down to 3.170 dB. We can see that it's a bit slower than the Llama 370B was. Let's see how 3.2 goes. 3.290 billion is actually fairly performant. And 405, let's see how that one rolls. Now 405 can be quite slow. It looks like it's really taking its time. Here we go. Kind of comes in chunks. Now all of these steps are streaming them directly from the AI providers. And so, you know, given that this is a much larger task or a larger model, then it makes sense that it takes longer for it to generate. All right, so let's go to the top here. We have quite a, we'll go ahead and fix the mistake in the line break here. And we'll fix this here, which is where it's showing us 3.18 Bravo. Okay, so we got ramen's immense umami flavor, ramen's immense umami flavor, ramen's immense. Okay, so it's starting off almost the same. We got largely due, can be attributed to, is largely attributed to. So we can see that these are all in a more or less similar fashion. They're working similarly, right? They're actually following the directions. They're bolding certain words that it thinks are important for the answer. Nucleotides and ribose and dashi and glutamic acid. Yeah, it's going scientific in why ramen has lots of umami. Pretty cool stuff. But it is following the directions. We get down here into the 70 billion zone. Yep, same. Seems to be that it's less scientific in a sense and more about the ingredients. It's probably good for you know, an actual paper or like a blog post or something. Maybe not scientific paper, but that would be a different type of prompt. So it seems like it tries to be a little bit more kind of, I don't know, direct to a consumer type of response. It's less scientific. Although this one here is kind of, it's got glutamates and glutamic acid and yeah. So, but they all seem to succeed pretty well, right? Ramen's immense umami flavor, but they're all very, very, very similar. And that can be attributed to the 0.3 on the temperature scale. But we wanted to see how they would all do with a level 1 kind of prompt. And so what we'll do here, let's make this, we'll call this level 1, and we'll put a horizontal rule here. Let's go down, we'll do level 2. Let's put a little horizontal rule there. And now let's change up our prompt. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the global memory, go into that prompt, and I'm just going to remove all of this. I'm going to use my snippets and do number 2. Number 2 is explain why Japanese ramen has immense umami flavor. It's the exact same stuff, except now we add in then think carefully step by step and explain the paragraph to a, let's add in to a 5th grader in one sentence. Write only the one sentence, no more, do not write a lead, explain the sentence. So again, it's basically telling it to write a paragraph and then only the sentence that describes it. We don't ask it to label it or anything like that. We just want it to write only the sentence. And so let's see what happens when we do that. I'm going to go back down here. I'm going to go back to my actions and I'm going to run the actions one more time. Okay. Again, 3.8 Bravo is doing the formatting issue again. Now it looks like this one did it as well. 3.170 Bravo is running. 90 is a little slow this time. Okay. And now 405. 405 will take its sweet time. And hopefully we get a similar answer to what we got with at least 3.290. There we go. Okay, so now that all this is done, let's just go ahead and fix up this formatting here that this messed up. And we'll go here, here, and here. Oh, one more. Okay. Actually, I probably messed that up. Did I mess it up? Let's see. No? Oh, here it is. Okay. So Japanese ramen has immense umami flavor because, and then, okay. This doesn't really feel like it's describing it to a fifth grader very well. Kombu seaweed, shoyu soy sauce, miso paste. It probably doesn't really do that well. 3.1, let's see how 3.1 does. It's bolding words like it should. It's even putting things in parentheses that, to help you understand what each of these mean. That's pretty good. Japanese ramen has immense umami flavor because it's made with ingredients that have lots of glutamates. I wouldn't say that's a fifth grader level thing. Okay. And let's see, 3.211 does Japanese ramen is immense umami flavor because it's made with lots of ingredients that have a special kind of savory taste. Okay. This one is not bad. 3.2 did better. I mean, it does have a little bit more, a few billion more parameters, but comparatively, it did a pretty decent job there. Okay, let's go into the 70 billion, and we're expecting some decent results here, right? Japanese ramen has a lot of umami flavors and special ingredients to seaweed helps. Okay, it's throwing glutamates in there, so that makes it a little difficult for, I think, a fifth grader to catch. And let's see, we got our bolding. It's following the instructions. So 3.170B is following it. See, it tastes super good because it's made of special ingredients. It's got glutamates in there again. It's very close to the just regular 370B. Let's see how 3.2 did with its extra, 20 billion parameters. Followed the instructions, and it also did glutamates. So it's not really doing a great job of explaining to fifth grader. Let's see how 405 did. This paragraph is quite short. I wonder if the second part of this influenced it to make it simpler as well. The rich pork was okay. So this part maybe feels like it goes a little bit less into how Japanese ramen has great umami flavor. And then this explainer here, not too bad, right? It's for a fifth grader. Yummy flavor comes from special broth. Yeah, pretty good. So in terms of that, I think 405B did well, except for this passage seems to not quite follow as well as the other ones did. And let's see, this one here, right? So 3.211 billion seemed to nail it pretty much perfect. So good job, 3.211 billion. That's quite a good model. And 405B was acceptable. The others, the first part of the prompt seemed to go pretty well, but then we have this where it sounds a little bit like it is doing okay, and then it goes into amino acid called glutamates, and it's, I'd say that for fifth graders that might be maybe not quite how you would describe it. Okay, so that's level 2. We just seen how that can do. So let's go on to level 3. And we'll just put a little horizontal rule here. And now we'll change our prompt. We'll go into here. Let's remove all of this. Let's do ramen umami level 3. So we're doing the same things. We're kind of combining the do not use headings, write one paragraph max. We're kind of combining that into one section. Same thing for the thinking afterwards and explaining that paragraph to a fifth grader. Now we're adding in another step here where we're going to define umami in the simplest terms you can and to follow a very specific format, which is a bolded definition of umami with a colon followed by the actual defined definition of umami. And so this gives us essentially 3 things happening in the same prompt, and then we've got some formatting in the first passage, asking it not to do anything aside from the first paragraph, and then thinking to try and do the whole step-by-step thing to make it take its time and come up with an answer for a fifth grader in one sentence, nothing else. And then we want to have it define umami. So we got all these 3 things going on in this prompt, and we'll just hit save here, and we'll go back to our actions, come over here, and let's run it. Aside from the change in the prompt, all of the other settings are all identical. And we're getting our formatting a little better this time. That's good. Interesting. Definition of umami. It's doing it. Okay, we're down in the 70 billion. Llama 3.170 billion does seem to be a bit slower than the others, doesn't it? This happened in the last test as well. 3.290 billion is pretty fast. That's good. Oh, 405 this time. You know, the model, the AI provider decided that this time it was going to be nice and quick. Okay. So let's take a look at what we got. Let's go up here to level 3 where it starts. So we've got our first passage. We've got some bolded words, so it's following those instructions. Here's an explanation. Okay, so it's not really following this, right? Because we didn't ask it to tell us what it's doing. So that's not what we wanted. The combination of special ingredients makes it taste super. Okay. Okay. So I mean, it's a good answer, but we didn't want that label, so it's kind of off in following the instructions or our prompt. Umami is a type of flavor, is also often described as savory, meaty, or brothy. Okay, sort of. Let's go bump this up a little here. So that was 8 billion for just a baseline Llama 3 generation. 3.1, we got something similar. It did not provide that label, so it did better there. Okay, and its answer is better this time even, so that's pretty good. Umami is a type of taste that is often described. Okay, so very similar, but it goes into glutamates. I didn't ask it to define it. Well, I did say define it in simplest terms. So I suppose maybe not quite the simplest terms, but you know, definitely not overly scientific or anything either. All right, let's see how 3.2 11 billion did. And you know, this one's been a pretty good model so far for our tests. Looks like this one passed. Japanese ramen has immense umami flavor because it's made with ingredients that are super good. Okay, that's pretty good for explaining to a 5th grader. Definition of umami is the 5th. Oh, here we go. The 5th basic taste in addition to sweet, sour, salty, and bitter. Yes. Yes. This is a very good answer. I would say that in simplest terms, this might be a little off because the glutamate's in the food, but you know, not too bad, right? I think the fact that it's the 5th basic taste, very good, very good. All right, moving on to the 70 billion baseline Llama 3. That solved it. Explanation. Okay, it provided a label as well. We don't want that. Super tasty, a lot of flavor. Okay, not bad for explaining to a 5th grader. Umami is the type of flavor that is often described as savory, meaty, and associated for, okay. Not the best answer for what umami is, but workable to a certain degree. Let's see how 3.1 did. That's good. Okay, the reason ramen tastes so good. Okay, not too bad, Umami is the 5th basic taste. Okay, good. That's a very good answer. 3.1 70B did pretty good on that one. Let's see how 90B does. Ace is that. Okay, ace is that. Okay. All right, so it doesn't quite nail the umami definition though. Interesting. So I would say compared to 3.1 in this particular case, it's not quite as good. It's workable, right? This is just ever so slightly off because it doesn't describe it as like the 5th basic taste. But it's a good effort, you know, considering that, you know, 90 billion parameter models aren't really massive. Well, I guess 90 billion is 20 billion more than 70, but you know, these are relatively small models. It's working pretty well. 405, let's see how it's doing. Let's see, the first paragraph is not too bad. The ramen tastes super good because of special ingredients that come from the ocean and are cooked for a long time. Okay, it's not always from the ocean, but you know, umami is the 5th basic. Okay, so it nails that. So that's not too bad, right? So we can see that these models are pretty capable of doing things with multiple requests in one prompt, right? So let's move on to level 4, and this is where things get a little bit more interesting. Let's go into our prompt here. Let's take all this out, and let's put level 4 in here. And let's see what's going on in level 4. So we've got all the same stuff down to here. except that then define umami in the simplest terms. Follow this format: definition of umami, and I have umami's defined, like I'm making misspells in here on purpose. And then cross-reference this with a dish from another country. Pick any dish, make comparisons to ramen, and how the umami is found in the other dish. Now this is giving it nothing specific. Like it can pick any country it wants, pick any dish that it wants, and then, make comparisons to ramen and see how it works with that. So see if it's able to do things that are a little outside of like a contextual bounds, right? We're just giving it freedom to pick any dish, and we'll see what happens there. So let's go ahead and save this, go down here, and we'll go back to our actions, make sure we're in the right spot in our document, and run. So we got Llama baseline of 8 billion. Okay. So right off the bat, we'll notice that 8 billion here, the Llama 3 8 billion didn't use any bold words in here, and it used a label, so it's kind of messing up. And described as said with glutamates, occurring amino acids. That's not really defining umami in the simplest terms. Ramen's umami flavor is similar to that found in many Asian dishes, such as Thai tom yum soup, which also relies on the combination of fish sauce, lemongrass, and mushrooms. Okay. Sort of, I guess. Yeah. I mean, I don't like that it says also relies on a combination of fish sauce, lemongrass, and mushrooms, because that alludes that that's what ramen's doing. And obviously it's not. It's a very different dish. Okay, then we move on to 3.1. So we got our bold words back. So that 3.1's following better. Japanese ramen has immense flavor. Okay, so that's a decent explanation to a 5th grader. Definition is bolded like it should be. Umami, this one up here, did it? Yep, it did. Umami is a type of taste, often described as savory, so it doesn't quite get the definition right. The Indian dish biryani also has a rich, savory flavor. Okay. All right. We didn't ask for it to bold words in there, so it's kind of mixing that into this passage, but it makes a little sense. I didn't tell it not to specifically either, so yeah, it's mixing that in. So we've gone to 3.2, 11 Bravo, and it's doing a very good job. Japanese ramen is immense. We got our bold words in there like we're supposed to. Immense umami ingredients, glutamates. It's not really a good 5th grader answer. Definition of umami is 5th taste. Okay, this is better. Back to the Thai soup. Let's see. It has an intense umami flavor. Okay. And high glutamates. Okay. Lemongrass and whatever that is, galangal. Used in the soup, also add a deep flavor. Okay. All right. That's a good answer. I like that. That's a very good answer for that prompt. Llama 370. Let's go into see what these bigger models can do. Okay. So it's adding that label in there we didn't ask for. It's even adding quotes now too. So that's not what we asked for. Umami is the yummy, savory taste, helps by glutamates, and it's also not a very good answer. Definition, 5th basic taste. Okay, so this it nailed again. The rich umami flavor could be like French bouillabaisse. Okay. All right. Yep, that works. And then next one, 3.1, 70B. Same, right? We got a good passage with some bolded words. Okay, so it did a really good answer for a 5th grader for the explanation of umami. Definition, no, it doesn't go into the 5th taste thing, and it kind of starts talking about glutamates and stuff, so not quite. Let's see here, umami flavors like bouillabaisse. Okay, so this one also picked bouillabaisse. By the way, these tasks, they each run independent individually. They do not share any knowledge between them or anything like that. They're being run individually. So none of these answers from previous models are influencing the later ones. Llama 3.2, let's see how this does. Okay, so we got a passage with bolded words in it. Explanation, okay, it's also throwing in a label this time. Super yummy, called umami, comes from ingredients. Okay. The explanation to a 5th grader is decent. Umami is the 5th basic taste. Sweet, sour, bitter, salty. Yep. Okay. So the definition's good. and it also picked French bouillabaisse. Okay. All right. So that's a pretty much a win, except for it added in the label here. So, and let's move on to Llama 3.1 405. Let's see, we get our first passage with bolded. Okay, this one's also adding in a label. Japanese ramen tastes super savory because it's made with special ingredients. Okay, that's pretty good. Definition of umami is a fifth taste. Okay, that's perfectly fine. And similar, this one also picked bouillabaisse. Okay, so not too bad. It's interesting that several picked bouillabaisse, but also we've got Thai soup and a couple of others. So that could be down to the settings and the temperature settings. Maybe in the future I will do something similar to this. We'll use a different prompt and we'll maybe up the temperature to maybe 0.5 instead of 0.3. It'll be a little bit less deterministic and give these models a little bit more freedom to write something different. The thing is, though, when you start raising the temperature, you also start running the risk of that it doesn't follow your prompts quite as closely. One thing that we'll notice is that even from the start up here at level 1, that for the most part, they are at least attempting to follow the full prompt, right? We're getting up here at level 1, we're getting our bolded words and stuff. And then as we get down here into level 2, we're getting our bolded words and we're getting our 5th grade explanation. Right? It's actually doing both. It's not like one is being left off or anything like that. And then when we get down here into level 3, we're getting our bolded words, we're getting the explanation, and we're getting the definition. And even then, the definition's also following the format as described. It's interesting when we start getting here. Let's see which one. There was one of these, I believe, is at level 4. We get down to level 4, and while it follows almost all the instructions here in Llama 3 8 billion, it did forget to bold words. So you can start to see where maybe this generation of the 8 billion parameter model is maybe starting to reach its limits. It's like we've got 4 different things going on in it. We've got some do's and don'ts in it. We've got some follow this formatting. We're asking it to do markdown, and maybe it's just a little bit too much for that model. But at the same time, as soon as we move on to 3.1, this generation of the 8 billion parameter model followed everything pretty much to the T. Even if it doesn't answer this umami definition here as well as it could, it is following the instructions, right? So we actually do get what we're expecting. We could get better results. And so I think one of the cool findings, though, is that this 3.2 11 billion parameter model it works pretty good, doesn't it? And if we go into the 3.2 90 billion parameter model, this one also works pretty well, and they perform pretty fast as well. So that's a nice touch. When they have speed behind them as well, it's definitely an advantage. The 405 here, it's almost like it's being outclassed a little bit by the newer 3.2 90 billion, and it's also quite slow, isn't it? So maybe in the future we'll have a newer version of this, and I suspect that what you might find the best uses for this would be less around trying to write content or come up with generate content ideas and things like that. Would be maybe more when you have time to take things a little slower and you want some more reasoning and planning type of steps. And so inside of Chibi, what we're doing here as an experiment, these prompts that are running one after another, these prompts on level 4 here are trying to do 4 things at once. And instead of doing that, if you're creating an action that does something like writes a section of your article or something for you, what you would do is you'd break it down, right? You wouldn't have one prompt try to do 4 things. You'd have 4 different tasks, and maybe you would have task 1 that analyzes what's going on, comes up with a plan, then comes down. This next task would take that plan, compare it to what your prompt was, or whatever your input is, your context that you're giving it, and it would come up with a sort of a draft or an outline of sorts that would pass on to the next one, and then that next step would actually write the full section based off of the few steps that you did in leading up to it. And the advantage of that is that you could take these smaller models that are faster, cheaper. You know, the token costs in some of these are like, I don't know, 15 cents per million or something. Is just basically nothing almost. You could take those and break them down into parts, and those smaller models can do one thing pretty well. So your task can break it all down, so it gets that one thing done really well, pretty fast and very cheap, and you combine them at the end to produce your section or your result or whatever it is that you're trying to do. Chibi actions they're only limited by your imagination and prompt capability. We are working on presets that we're going to launch relatively soon. The first one I described yesterday in a video. We call it tone shift. And I'll just as a quick peek here, if I go into tools, I've got one that's here. It's called tone shift. This is the original that I used to create it. But down here in testing, see how I have that here? I'm just going to go ahead and delete this. And I got this install preset button here. This is not in the live chibi right now, but it will be in the future. And I click here and I have writing tools section. If I open it, I have 2 presets that we're working on right now. There's going to be more before we launch this live. But what I can do is I can click on tone shift and it installs it here, right? And I can just, it says installed, review the models, go into here. And what that means is when it's installed, what you'll want to do is come into here, into your AI settings, and then change these models to whatever you want them to be. And essentially, this is a preset action. Now it's installed on my actions toolkit. I can do whatever I want with it. And when I open this up, these tasks are all here, all predefined for me. And they have some fairly complex prompting going on here that will create some really good results. Didn't have to write it, but you're free to change it. If your goals are different than what this preset precisely creates, you're totally free to make any changes you want to it, make it your own. And if you ever want to come back and install another version of it, you can just click here, click here, click here, and you get a second version of it. You can change the name of it and everything too, of course, so that you can make it your own. But you're never, you know, overriding the preset or anything like that. Once it's installed into your actions toolkit, it becomes yours to change as you see fit. So pretty cool stuff. I look forward to getting that out there, but I hope you found this experiment interesting. It does help come up with some ideas for models that we might use in different places. And yeah, if you have any questions or about this, about the prompts or about Chibi or anything, feel free to leave a comment. I'd be happy to help you. If you don't have a Chibi account yet, if you join now, you'll get 3 days free, no credit card required. And you can try all this yourself. And until next time, take care.